Chapter 11. End of the line. What good is it doing for you to inflict pain on me? I have nothing to prove. I'm a normal, average man who will scream and writhe just as much as anyone else. What does it accomplish? Again, Mr. Kane, you are underselling yourself. You're the leader of the Sparrows, and you not only symbolize rebellion, you embody it. My purpose is to kill you as painfully and traumatically as possible. I want to cut the head off the snake and drive away any notion of resistance, at least for a generation or two. Have you considered the possibility that this could have the opposite effect? Jude asked. I hardly think that's possible. I killed the cartels. I think I can handle a few misguided civilians with too much time on their hands. Do you really think you could inspire a movement after your death? Certainly not. But a long time ago, there was this one guy who pulled it off, and the Sparrows are pretty big fans of his ideas. We'll see, he huffed. Remove his shirt and lay him flat. It's time for surgery. Here are some insights. For context, Jude is clearly being tortured. He was taken to that secret facility in the Texaco desert, and he is being tortured by General Alvarado. This scene is very ironic because while Jude is talking about how much he doesn't matter, Alvarado recognizes really how powerful Jude and the Sparrows really are. I think he even recognizes it more than Jude does. He recognizes the potential for the Sparrows to really unite people against the government. And I think he sees that clearer than Jude does. Jude still thinks of himself as just a kid from a sack, and he hasn't quite grasped how important he and the Sparrows really are. Something to think about is torture ever justified? Is it effective? Those are two different questions. Because, it could be very effective, but does that mean it's justified? And if it's not justified, could it still be effective at stopping violence? Which kind of makes you think, instead of maybe justified, is it maybe necessary? If you can get information from somebody who you're torturing that would end up saving lives, does that justify torturing? Is it ever just whether or not you think it's justified or moral? Do you think it's necessary to defend the innocent or confront evil? Sometimes it's easy to commit to nonviolence, but then when you're facing a violent enemy, how do you confront them? Research does indicate that, the research we do have on what the military calls enhanced interrogation techniques, which is torture to get information, shows that it actually generally is pretty unreliable. I mean, people, when they do talk, usually just talk to stop the pain, and they may not necessarily say what's true, or they'll taint the truth, make it a half-truth. They generally don't just suddenly become very open. They recognize if you're being tortured that they're especially if they have no chance of getting out, that, it's amazing what people will go through to not give up information or even give false information just because they're so angry. So it actually isn't, it turns out it's actually not that effective. So maybe that kind of factors into what you think. It's a difficult question. Because confronting evil is a difficult thing to do. When you're committed and you have principles and you don't want to be violent, it's easy to get on a high horse until you get in the middle of war and you see horrible things being done to people. And then you have to think about, what am I willing to do to stop it? It gets a little more muddy. But I think there's still room for principle, and I think there's still room for philosophy. And I think that just war theory is actually something worth taking a look at. It sounds ironic, but there is some deep thinking that has been going into that for thousands of years. So anyway, just one of those things to think about. Anyway, stay tuned. We're going to see what happens to Jude and see if he survives, as well as everybody else, as well as Zach, Nolan, and all the other Sparrows that were taken to this facility. We're going to see what happens. So hang on for Chapter 12.